I've spent a long time in my life just running away from my feelings. It's really my favorite coping mechanism. I think that's the right kind of word for that. My favorite, my favorite way to deal with things is to just run from them, try to ignore them, try to numb myself from them as much as I can so I don't have to feel them. That's what I've always done. And, well, hopefully it's not what I'm always gonna do. Because as I get older, I've realized you can't really run from your feelings. You can try. You can try really hard. There's a lot of things you can do to try to numb yourself from them, but they always come back. They never really they never really go anywhere, you know? The only way to really get through your feelings is by actually feeling them. And so as I've gotten older, I'm becoming an advocator for feeling your feelings, good and bad, all kinds. Just feel them. Let them take over. Let them run through your system, run their course, drag you down, bring you up, because that's the only way you're going to get through it, you know? And some things are harder to just feel than others. Sometimes it really wrecks you. It really will destroy just everything. It'll tear you down, but at the same time, it's going to build you back up. The only way to grow from something is to let it destroy you. You have to break yourself down, or I mean, I suppose if it's your feelings, then it's you gotta break yourself down to be able to build yourself back up. You will never go anywhere. You know, those feelings are never gonna just disappear one day. It's always gonna be a part of you. You know, at least in a lot of senses. But feelings change over time. Something that used to cause immense amounts of pain or sadness or whatever, it'll change eventually. It's not gonna hurt forever. I've been through I've been through enough in my life to know that things things get better. It can take a while, and it might seem like forever, you know? I think one of the most prominent feelings is heartbreak and grief, you know, kind of can be one and the same, really. You don't necessarily have to grieve over somebody who's passed. You can grieve over somebody who's left your life. I've spent a lot of time grieving over people that are still alive, and you just have to. You have to let it go. You can't. The more you run from it, the easier it becomes to find you. You know, you can numb yourself and try to just ignore your feelings and your emotions and just keep running and running and running. And one day, it's gonna catch you. It's gonna find you. It might be something so simple. It could just be your day to day at work, and all of a sudden, it's like having a heart attack, and you just feel this pain in your chest, and you just want to break down and cry. It's gonna catch you, one day or another. It's gonna find you, and if it does once, it comes faster every time. Every time you think it's gone, and it comes right back. You can only run so far and for so long before you just have to feel. You just have to just take it as it is and accept it for what it is. And like I said, it'll get better. It'll take time, but it won't be bad forever. It won't hurt forever. Life is too long for pain to reside forever. And I really don't think it can get any better until you let it. At least in my life, that's how it's been. Like I said, I've spent a lot of my life running from my feelings of any kind, really. Just always, I would rather feel nothing than to feel bad or feel sad or whatever. You know, I'd rather just be numb. I'd rather be forgetful and act like it doesn't bother me until it doesn't bother me. But it always will. It always will until you can accept it for what it is. At least in a lot of cases. I don't know. I haven't really met a feeling that I can run from forever. You know, I feel like I used to run from grief over we'll use my grandma for example, because her birthday's coming up in like a month, so it's kind of been stuck on my mind. But when my grandma passed, I wasn't bothered. Didn't care, honestly. I hate admitting that. I really hate admitting that because I know how much of a toll it took on the rest of my family, especially my mom. Countless days where I would find my mom just grieving and crying and so hurt by the death of my grandma. And understandably, death is hard, especially when it's your parent. It's tough. But I would almost feel guilty that I would see her as this emotional wreck, unable to control herself, unable to, you know, and obviously it's just her process of grieving, but she couldn't get a grip. She would call out of work on some days that were too hard, and she couldn't do it. And I get that. I get that. But I would always feel so guilty because she would come to vent to me or whatever, and I'd have to sit there and act like I understand why she's so upset. And obviously, especially now that I'm older, I understand why she's upset. It was never that I didn't understand why she was upset. It's just that I didn't agree. I didn't feel the pain that she felt. I was numb to it. It was whatever. And granted, that's that's not a great start, but that's okay. My relationship with my grandma was very different than my relationship with my mom. Growing up, I never really liked my grandma very much, to be put it simply, I suppose. We never really got along, never really agreed on things. I don't know what just died out here, but let's hope it wasn't anything important. So we just never really got along like she did with my brothers, and just we never were a good pair, I guess. And so when she passed in my young age of like 12 or something, 13 or something, I was like, oh, grandma's passed. That means I don't have to go to church anymore. All those days of being dragged out of the house by my collar to go do things that I didn't want to do, and go places I didn't want to go. And because that's what my grandma did. She loved to take us out. She loved getting us out in the world and doing stuff. And she was very religious. So we always had like, I think it was like Wednesday nights were our church nights. And then Sundays we usually would go to church with her and stuff. And being the little prepubescent teen that I was, I hated it because all I wanted was freedom. All I wanted was time to myself. So when she passed, it meant I got all that time back to myself again. No more having to do things that I don't want to do, going places that I don't want to go, etc. And so I wouldn't say I was happy by any means. I was definitely not happy about my grandma's passing because that would be really dark. I'd be really messed up. I'd be very ashamed of myself if I could confidently say I was happy about it. But I wasn't sad. I was not a wreck. I was not, even my brother was more heartbroken about it than I was. I really, honestly, just in the nicest way possible, I just didn't care. It really didn't care. It really didn't mean much to me. And I think another part of that is that it was the first death in my family that I was alive for, and that was anything close to me. Like I think my great grandma passed before that, but I didn't know her. You know, by the time that I ever met her, she was blind and deaf and could barely walk, you know, like so. And that's not to say like you shouldn't appreciate people just because they're not as healthy as they once were. Of course, you should still love them, but I was like 6 years old probably. Like I was a little kid. I didn't have any sort of emotional maturity or any maturity for that matter to really process everything and understand everything that was going on. So that one didn't, my great grandma's passing didn't really bother me. And then again, neither did my actual grandma's passing. And then I got older and I realized how sad it was that I was never going to see my grandma again, that she was passed on. And I think the first really like hit to me was at her funeral because I'd gone all this time just I guess honestly in some sense just pretending that I didn't care, pretending that it didn't bother me, you know, focusing on the fact of like, well, like I said, no more church, no more getting dragged around the town to places I don't want to go and talking to people I don't like and whatever else my grandma would put us up to. And so I would hard focus on that part that it meant some sense of freedom for me away from her. And then at her funeral, I cried. I I broke down for the first time about it, and I realized like, oh my God, she's actually gone, and she's not coming back. You know, that's it. Casket closed. I think I don't remember, but I think about it a lot because my uncaring self led me to not even being asked if I wanted any sort of like, I feel like memorabilia is the wrong word, but basically that when they went to go clean out my grandma's house and they were getting ready to sell it and everything, my mom took my brother and I think both of my brothers for that matter, and basically anybody in the family that wanted to was allowed to come through and pick through her house and keep some stuff that reminded them of her, some stuff that whatever. I didn't even get asked to go, and my mom flat out told me, she said, well, I didn't think you really cared that much, so I didn't bother to ask you. And to be fair, at the time that it was all happening and all happened, I didn't. And I probably wouldn't have even known what I would have taken to remember her by. But now, I'm 22, it's been, I don't know, 8, 10 something years. It's been a while. It's been a long while. And I have nothing. I have nothing to remember my grandma by. I have no pictures of her. I have no pictures of us. I have none of the childhood decorations that used to haunt me. Like, I have nothing to remember her by other than the clouded, not so happy memories that I've left myself with because I spent so long just trying to not care and running from how I really felt, running from that sadness that ached inside of me and ignoring it, and now I'm left with nothing, nothing to show for it, nothing to honor her by. And I don't know, I guess I feel kind of guilty about it sometimes because I know now, looking back, that my grandma only ever wanted the best for me. She only ever wanted the best for honestly all of us, brothers, kids, whoever, my mom included. All she ever wanted was for us to be good people and do good things in her eyes, which her idea of a good person is a little different than mine, but overall, same gist of things. A good person is a good person. Now, why does that matter? I don't know. I'm just stuck thinking about my grandma and how much I ran from my feelings about her, because it didn't really hit me until my adult years how much I miss her, how much I how much I would give to just have some of that time back to to show her and tell her and let her know that, like, I appreciated her. Because one of the last memories I have of my grandma was arguing with her about how much I didn't like her, because she was always taking me out to like I said, taking me out to church and going places and doing things, and I didn't realize the good that she was trying to do by doing all that. She didn't want us to just be sheltered in our little rooms playing our video games all the time. And as a kid, I hated that. I hated that so much. But I'm older now, and I've learned from my ways. And it's taught me that you just need to feel things. You just need to feel things for how they are, because you don't truly understand things until you feel every feeling behind it. You know? Not sure if that makes a lot of sense, but I just, like I said, I didn't realize how sad I was about my grandma's passing for a long time. It took a long time, even after the funeral, and I shed my tears, like one tear, maybe a couple. It wasn't like I broke down bawling my eyes out at the funeral. It was just a little bit of a moment of clarity that she was gone. And then I went back to the numb of the trying to be, again, I don't want to say happy about it, because I wasn't necessarily happy about it, but it wasn't like I was heartbroken. It wasn't like I was upset. And I just tried to focus on that feeling for a long time. Long, long time. And then random little things would pop up, and it'd make me think of my grandma. I'd think and I'd say, man, my grandma would love to see this right now. Or there's been a lot of times as I've gotten older, and a lot of the more poor decisions that I've made in my life, a lot of the things I've done to try to keep myself numb and forgetful, and I would take a step back and I would say, what would my grandma think about this right now? What would my grandma say to me if she saw the person I am right now? And sadly, I wish that had more of an effect on me, because as much as my mom doesn't like to admit it, I think it's more her just trying to be nice. My grandma would hate the person that I became. I am the complete opposite of anything she ever wanted me to be. And I think it's due to the fact of the pressure of people wanting me to be somebody pushed me to be the opposite. Or who really knows? I'm sure there's a lot of reasons behind why I am the way I am and why I am who I am. But a big one is from just constantly trying not to feel, and to trying not to accept my feelings for what they are, and just ignore them, or just pretend they're not what they are, if that makes sense, Like, should have came up with some examples before I started rambling, but it's whatever. Just a lot of faking. A lot, a lot, a lot of faking how I feel, because I didn't feel justified in my feelings, and I didn't feel like I deserved to feel the way I felt, or I didn't deserve to be sad. Like, one example, when my best friend for all of my life, or a long time, I shouldn't say all of my life, because I haven't talked to him in probably 3 or 4 years now, but my best friend, we met in, oopsies, we met in preschool. I know. The only reason I remember that is because my mom would always tell me about it. He was my only friend that I had in preschool, and we went to the same elementary school. So on literally the first day of kindergarten, He was the only kid I knew. The only person in the whole building that I knew anything about, and he asked me if I wanted to be friends, you know, as you do when you're in kindergarten. It's nice and simple back then. It's not, you know, you don't really have to learn about each other as much. You want to be friends? Sure, let's be friends. Things don't work out, it's really no bad blood until like for me, it was like third grade is when the drama started coming from friendships. Things weren't so like things weren't so cut and dry anymore. It wasn't like, hey, you want to be friends? Cool. Oh, you don't want to be friends anymore? All right. Third grade is when things got like dramatic about it. It's like, you don't want to be my friend, or like, this is your best friend. I'm not your best friend. Like, it's stupid stuff. But, anyways, point being, my best friend, my only friend for a long time, really, my only true close friend, because we grew very close together, because we we connected in a very strange way, but I think it's at least where my half of the friendship came from is he came from a broken home similar to me. Very different, but he was the only kid I knew, or I guess really the only kid I talked to even find out. But he didn't his dad was not in the picture. I'm not gonna like fully out his whole situation just out of respect, but basically, he was raised by a single mom. My parents are divorced, so I was always back and forth. But that was our connection. In my head, that was our connections. We both had messed up parent situations. You know, my simple understanding as a kindergartner, and we were best friends for probably almost 20 years. I could probably still call him and he'd answer, and it'd be like no time has passed. But that's not the point of today's video. He moved away in third grade, second grade, somewhere around there, and we stayed in touch. Like, well, our parents stayed in touch mostly to schedule sleepovers and stuff like that. But as weird as it is, I think it took a toll on me from a very young age. I don't think I realized it for a long time that it affected me, but it was my best friend in the whole world who now moved the entirety of the city away from me. It was no more seeing each other at school. It was, you know, the summers we would have our like 2 day sleepovers, and that was about it. That was, we would play games together occasionally and stuff. That's probably where we kept our friendship alive the most. But I didn't have any other real life friends, at least not for a while. I was pretty alone, and I don't think I really ever thought about it, or I guess I never really felt it. I never let myself feel that I was sad about it. I was just like, well, there's no reason to be sad because you're still friends. You can talk online and you can have your sleepovers and stuff. Like, you don't deserve to feel sad about it. It's not like he's gone, but you always deserve to feel your feelings. And it took me a long time to realize that. I I've always felt that my feelings had to be justified in somebody's eyes, and that I had to earn to be sad. I wasn't allowed to just be sad, especially from a young age. What do I have to be sad about as a little kid? But I was very for a long time, and just I never felt it. I never let myself feel it. Obviously, I felt it somewhere itching in the back of my mind. Obviously, because I wouldn't have turned out to be the sad individual that I became. And that's not to say I'm sad all the time. Sometimes I feel like I'm sad all the time. Sometimes I feel like hopeless. And when I get to that point, my natural instinct is to run, and is to numb. It's to find anything that'll take that feeling away from me. Anything that'll make me feel, well, I shouldn't say anything because the easy option would be you're feeling lonely, call somebody, text somebody, hang out with anybody at all. Make yourself not lonely. But instead, I'm going to do unhealthy activities that are going to make me forget that I'm lonely and make me feel partially okay with my alone emptiness instead. And then in 3, 4, 5 hours later in the day, sometimes just immediately because it doesn't work, I'm gonna be lonely again and I'm gonna be sad again and I'm gonna look for something else to take that feeling away. And I'm gonna just keep running and running and running and running. And that's led me to this self isolation that I live, where I don't talk to people. I don't want to talk to people. I don't like to talk to people. I very scarcely leave my house if I have to. And the people that I do interact with are not usually people that I want to interact with. It's not like I'm calling up my best friend to go get a drink or something, as if I I just try my very hardest to never leave my little prison cell, my little room, and I don't know. I will sit here and preach and preach and preach about feeling my feelings, but I don't really know what to do after that because I feel like I've been feeling these feelings for a long time and they don't really go anywhere. Sometimes things get easier. I don't miss my best friend nearly as much as I did in third grade, you know? I've lost many other friends to very similar circumstances since then, and I mean, sure, I miss them, but it's not like a heartache. It's not like a heart-wrenching, you know? I miss my friends. There's been times, there's definitely late nights that I do get that heart-wrenching pain of, you know, loneliness, I guess. It's not constant. It's not all the time. It's not very often anymore, to be honest with you. So I guess that's what is. I guess that's what's next. Is you feel your feelings for so long that eventually they. I mean, they change. I feel like I said that at the beginning of the video that you feel things for so long and your feelings eventually change. It goes from this grief of missing your friends to a acceptance that what happened happened, the good times were shared, and you moved on. That's life. So I guess I do know what comes next is the moving on part. But I suppose that's not always the case for every feeling. You don't really just move on from every feeling. Some things just stick with you. Most things just stick with you and you learn to grow around them. You don't you can't run from them forever. You have to learn to grow with them. You learn to love despite what once was, you know? You don't let your grief hold you back forever because if, it'll never go away. If you just constantly run, it'll never change. It'll never get easier. It only becomes haunting almost. You almost become haunted by those feelings that you just are constantly trying to escape from. It's like a call in the back of your mind or a scratch in the back of your head. Just waiting for that one moment where it's all gonna come back. It's all gonna flood in. I don't know. Everybody's different. Maybe that's just me, to be honest, but that's how it feels. Feels oftentimes like I'm haunted by my feelings rather than just accepting them, you know? I'm sad today. I'm sad today. It is what it is. We'll move on. Rather than I'm not sad today. I'm great. I'm having an amazing day. I woke up and cried my eyes out, but everything's awesome. Like that only works for so long, you know? And I suppose it was easier when I was younger. It was easier to just brush it off and act like everything was cool, put on my little smile and go about my day, but it feels so it almost made me feel more empty, trying to pretend to feel something I'm not, trying to pretend to be happy when I'm not, you know? It almost just makes you feel more of whatever it is you're trying to run so hard from, because you're working so hard trying to act like you're not. It just doesn't work. Fake it till you make it, but it doesn't work with feelings. It really doesn't. Not in my situations. Not in my simple life that I've lived. Granted, I don't really know anything of what I'm talking about because I'm not any sort of professional at anything. I'm simply just a under not under what word was I looking for? Uh I'm just an overly sensitive introvert. Let's go with that, because I can't remember what I was trying to say. I'm just an overly sensitive introvert who spends way too much time with my feelings. So, you know, take my advice with a grain of salt, if it even is advice. Just feel your feelings. That's really it. Just feel. It's okay to feel. Oftentimes it doesn't feel okay to feel, but it is. It's not something to be ashamed of. Everybody has feelings. Everybody has emotions. Bummer. We all go through the waves just as anybody else, and no, I hate that menu. Just because you don't feel justified in whatever issues you're going through doesn't mean you're not. You feel the way you feel for a reason, and that's all the justification you need. Hopefully, if I say that enough, one day I'll actually believe it, and I will stop fighting my feelings in search for some kind of justification. There is no justification. We're all humans. We're all living life. We're all doing the best we can. That's all the justification you need. It's don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And have a wonderful day, night, whatever time it is, whenever this gets uploaded. I love you. Keep feeling your feelings. Don't run away from them. Have a good day.